At the point of takeoff, it has just been about 11 seconds for him to reach about 600 feet. And thereafter, if you see, the wings are level, normal, and it is coming down into a gradual glided descent. So I would not call this a crash. I would say a pilot did a controlled crash landing. The aim of an investigation is to prevent a repetition of the accident. I've not been happy at all about the safety record of India and the systems followed. No one in the world, not even the best authorities, people who are sitting in Delhi, not at DGCA, will know exactly what has happened at this point in time.
By what is known so far, what is your initial assessment of what has happened?
What is known so far is a lot of information which is coming out where people can only speculate as to what could have gone wrong. No one at this point of time will know exactly what has happened till you have more facts and data available from the voice recorder and the DFDR availability. Because a lot of things which you possibly could have gone wrong have gone wrong. For example, there could be multiple bird strikes, could be mechanical failure of fuel injection systems or whatever, could be a pilot error, could be even sabotage. So there's no point in saying this is exactly what happened, etc. What is a little intriguing to people like me who are watching the TV quite accurately is the very fact that the undercarriage was down. And also, we are not sure whether the flaps were deployed or not deployed. Now, both these things, if you go into technical aspects of it, first of all, as soon as a pilot takes off an aircraft, he puts the gear up, maybe at less than 50 feet or 100 feet, etc. So was he getting, if he was getting the normal power and things were normal during the takeoff, the right thing, he would have put the gear up. The very fact that the gear was not up, maybe it did not go up when he tried, or maybe even at that point in time, he must have faced some emergency and realized that there was a problem and purposely left the gear down, because in any crash landing or landing like that, it is advisable to keep your gear down and land the aircraft. Also, the very fact that the flaps were not visible to us, maybe they are down or up, I am not too sure. But if, as people claim, they were up, first of all, during takeoff, you will get a warning that it is not in the right configuration for takeoff. So before takeoff, the pilot will get a warning that the aircraft is not correctly, and he should have done his checklist, which is done at all times in any case. So these are things which are confusing us a little bit as to why were there actually flaps down or not down, or what was the problem.
And in an emergency, what is the protocol that is followed immediately? Is a mayday always issued?
Oh, well, mayday is important, but it is not the first priority. The first priority for the pilot is to keep the aircraft under control and to sort out the emergency. Something could be urgently to be sorted out, so he sorts that out immediately. And simultaneously, as soon as possible, he declares a mayday. So in this particular case, what is important is the period of time involved. From the time the aircraft has taken off, at this point in time, we are not 100% sure whether the aircraft had full power, normal power, and at what stage did the engines fail to give him power. It could be a few seconds before the descent started, because the inertia could have carried him to 600 feet, etc. So that is not very clear at this point in time. So at the point of takeoff, it has just been about 11 seconds for him to reach about 600 feet. And thereafter, if you see, the wings are level, normal, and it is coming down into a gradual glided descent. So I would not call this a crash. I would say a pilot did a controlled crash landing. And maybe if there was a clear area in front of him, many more lives could have been saved. He could have, because the ideal thing is to put it in a clear space where there's no buildings. But I'm sure most of the cities today in India have built up buildings and a lot of built up areas. So the main why the fire happened and why the accident was disastrous and so many people died is essentially because it went into buildings.
Right. And this particular crash happened during takeoff. Is that one of the time periods that a plane is most vulnerable for accidents?
It is critical, yes. I wouldn't say only accident, but yes, that's a critical phase during takeoff and landing time also. So, and these things are visualized, sorted out, training is done, etc. For example, if the pilot experiences an emergency during the takeoff also, he is aware at what stage. He has about 2 seconds to respond also to continue to take off or reject the takeoff, depending on what speed. And these things are all calculated in advance. He has them right in front of him and he monitors. In fact, the co-pilot calls out these speeds also. So these things are all rehearsed and people understand pilots, every pilot understands the importance of these features. So what went wrong, at what stage did something go wrong, we also have to determine.
Right. And Captain, how do you see the investigation unfolding, and what are the levels of transparency that we can expect?
I think transparency you can expect totally 100%. I don't think there should be any problem on that front. But if people expect, in fact, on the first day, everyone was asking, tell us what happened, tell us what happened. No one in the world, not even the best authorities, people who are sitting in Delhi, not at DGCA, will know exactly what has happened at this point in time. Because, yes, there are two important black boxes, as you know, the voice recorder and the DFDR. The voice recorder, you can take out immediately and hear the voice, what happened in the cockpit. It is possible that they may have already heard the voice recorder. The people, authorities may be already aware what conversation happened in the cockpit. After all, it's a matter of not even half a minute. So that is almost immediate. However, the DFDR is a very complex instrument and it has been improved over a period of time for so many years. And for it to be downloaded itself will take a couple of weeks.
Okay.
And thereafter, these are digital formats which are produced by the DFDR. And to interpret this information also, it'll take experts. So they have to be interpreted correctly to understand what has happened at what stage. So that will take some time.
Okay. And there's been a lot of speculation, Captain, about many things, but particularly also about factors like heavy fuel load and high temperature. How likely is it that this affects the aircraft's climb performance?
It does affect. That is why all calculations are done and calculated depending on the weather conditions, the temperature, etc. And these manuals are very clear. So before every single takeoff, the pilot and the people who assist him in the planning, etc., do these calculations well in advance. And sometimes, if some winds are not favorable, they may not permit a takeoff. If the aircraft is too heavy for takeoff, then it may be actually sometimes they remove the load, remove the passengers to make the aircraft airworthy. So these things are all calculated and there's routine things which are done every single day by everyone. So there shouldn't be a problem on that front. So whatever be the temperature, it was within limits.
Okay. And during such emergencies, Captain, are there plan Bs, plan Cs that are meant to be kicked off?
Uh, See, all emergencies, you can't view all sorts of problems that could have happened. For example, what is normal in a takeoff is you have an engine failure. Now, all pilots have practiced that over a period of time. It is practiced in the simulator, and there are time frames laid down. For example, every pilot is required to respond within 2 seconds if during takeoff, if emergency happens, if there's an engine failure or something happens, he is required to react within 2 seconds to decide on whether to continue the takeoff or not to continue the takeoff and what action to take. So these things are rehearsed and planned, and people are trained on it. You do simulator practices on it, and all pilots are examined for it regularly.
Right. And Captain, this is the first major crash involving a Dreamliner, but there have been several concerns earlier. How do you view that with in this context?
See, a lot of people, I've heard reviews from people that they've pointed fingers at Airbus Industries or Boeing Industries that they're cutting shortcuts. And I don't buy that theory at all because I'm sure both these Airbus and Boeing have been in the business for a very long time. I know some of the people who operate in the production test pilots also personally, and they're extremely professional. and they're receptive to changes, receptive to ideas, etc. And I don't think they will compromise on air safety at all.
But there have been several whistleblowers from Boeing that have been raising alarms over several years. Do you think these concerns are relevant to what has happened?
No, not relevant to what has happened, but yes, they are relevant. For example, recently there was an interview, or for example, the CEO of the Boeing company was interrogated by the government in America,
Yeah.
and he was posed a lot of questions. But that does not mean that the aircraft is unsafe. That does not mean that the safety has been compromised. To the best of my knowledge and knowing these aircraft for so many years, I don't think safety would be compromised by any of these large manufacturers.
Okay, but what do you think are the most common safety lapses that generally lead to such crashes, crashes of such a high scale?
See, if people knew what the lacuna was, then they'd obviously rectify those things immediately. No, I'm saying the pilot, most all the accidents are rated by human error or mechanical error. So human error, the rate has not fallen down over the last so many years, but mechanical defects, which have been there prevalent earlier, have been rectified and have improved on it, and aircraft have been made safer to a far greater extent. So the mechanical errors have fallen drastically, but the human errors have not fallen drastically. They are still to be addressed.
Okay. And Captain, what role does the DGCA, Air India, and the Ministry of Aviation play in ensuring accountability in such an incident where so many lives have been lost?
Uh, I am little hesitant to tell you about the DGCA, but I have not been happy at all about the safety record of India and the systems followed. And the main reason for these lacunas and the same main reason why the accident rate is higher in India than all around the world is essentially due to the DGCA. If you want figures, it's not my opinion that I'm expressing. I'll give you Flight Safety Foundation's figures. All over the world, the accident rate is approximately 1.5 hull losses per million departures. That's an average for the world. People who have good safety records and are practicing independent safety audits, etc., like America, Europe, Japan, Australia, they have a safety record of 0.5 to 0.4 to 0.6. As India's record, I don't even want to mention to you because I'll frighten your viewers into. So that needs to be addressed to a very significant level. And I'll explain to you why I'm saying about the DGCA. I'm from the Air Force, so we're a regimental way of functioning and professional way of functioning from coming from the Air Force when I came to the civil. And there I realized everyone was abusing the DGCA for this is not happening there, not safe here and not safe there. So I went into a little bit of details and found out that in the whole office of the DGCA, which is a technical office, there was not a single aviator. This is a few years back. This is about 30, 35 years back. There was not a single aviator in the whole office of the DGCA. There were only bureaucrats. How do you expect a bureaucrat to understand technical aspects of aviation? A bureaucrat is the director of examination, director of air safety, director of accident analysis. So it is pathetic. Things have improved over a period of years after a lot of pressure has been laid. And because there was no professional uh, persons available in DGCA, I started an organization called the Federation of Indian Pilots. That is a professional body purely to improve safety and standards. And we've been getting the best authorities in the world to come and give various lectures, symposiums in India, etc. And we've also started an institute, which is also extremely important, is education in India, all around, not just for pilots. See, today a pilot is taught how to fly an aircraft. But who teaches him how to be a commander? Has anyone thought of that? Every pilot, it is expected that after a period of time with certain experience, if he goes senior, etc., and he becomes a commander. But is there any training imparted to him to be a good commander? Like MBA in aviation or awareness of international laws, awareness of your regulations, awareness of what your limitations are, what your rules are. what powers and authority you have, what you can. So these are the things which need to be addressed in an educational institution. Hopefully, that will improve soon.
This episode is brought to you by Nordstrom. Spring calls for a wardrobe refresh, and Nordstrom has the best styles of the season. From dresses and denim to standout tops and accessories, find the trends and essentials that feel right for you. Discover new arrivals from brands you love like Wave, Princess Polly, Mango, Adidas, and Free People. Plus, free shipping and returns and free styling appointments make everything so easy. Shop in stores at Nordstrom.com or download the Nordstrom app.
Definitely. So do share the India's record in terms of safety. You didn't want to scare our viewers, but I believe it's important for them and us to be aware.
I suggest you leave it at that because it would unnecessarily cause a lot of friction and anxiety.
Sure. I also want to lastly just speak about the survivor, the sole survivor from the crash. How do you reckon this happened? I mean, he does not even seem very badly injured. How did he survive and just make it?
Okay, I'll tell you that. In fact, on the first day, as soon as this thing happened and we saw the aircraft coming down, etc., I was fairly confident that there'd be far more survivors. For the simple reason, the at that point in time, we didn't know this hostel and the hospital was right in front of the runway, etc. But the way the aircraft was coming down smoothly and in a controlled manner with wings level and like almost like gliding down, and it is undercarriage down. Undercarriage is required to take an impact of any crash or etc. So I expected a lot more people to survive. But because it went into buildings and there was a huge fireball and the whole aircraft caught fire, most people would have died not because of the crash itself, but because of the fire that happened on the aircraft straight away. So this particular person made, and I believe his seat got taken off from the aircraft also, and he landed somewhere else. So he must have just been lucky enough to have some cushioning effect with someone or the other and unstrapped himself and walked out of the aircraft. And walking out of aircraft, the whole aircraft had broken up at that point in time, the fuselage. So there was no question of getting out of the door or some emergency hatch. He could have walked out from any part of the aircraft fuselage.
And Captain, there's been a lot of speculation, a lot of misinformation around the crash since there's still a lot of clarity to be received over what has happened. What would you advise our viewers to? I mean, everyone is anxious to understand, everyone is scared and devastated. What would be your advice to go through these difficult times without falling?
For all people who are anxious, everyone wants to know. I want to know what happened right away. But we also know people who are in the business of understanding aviation safety and standards and investigation. You are aware that you cannot get all the information straight away. It'll take a period of time. To the best people who are doing the investigation directly also, immediately also, they themselves will not know what has happened, etc., unless they analyze various the aircraft itself, the cockpit itself, the voice recorder. I'm sure a lot of information will be available almost immediately, maybe today or as soon as possible from the voice recorder, because that would be available. And people who have analyzed it must have known what transpired, what happened in the cockpit, at what stage was some emergency happen, was it some engine failure. So that minimum information will be available. However, to give you an idea that after a period of time, you will get such clarity because what they eventually do from this DFDR information, they put it onto a simulator. The simulator is very similar to an aircraft. It performs on the same way the aircraft performs. And the same conditions, same things are put in the simulator. And after putting it in the simulator, and the simulator will actually demonstrate what actually happened during the crash time. So you will know far more details. You will know accurately what happened, but it takes time to get the information, correlate the information, and then interpret it also. So that will always take a little time.
Sure. Thank you so much, Captain. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Okay. Yes, I'd only like to add this accident investigation. See, first of all, Annexure 13 of ICAO, which is the document, which is the Bible for accident investigation, states very clearly as a preamble, the aim of an investigation is to prevent a repetition of the accident, not to apportion blame. So first of all, in India, we need to improve the whole safety system to a very large extent. Our safety system is certainly not adequate, And many of us have been pointing this out to the government and to the Prime Minister also. But it has to reach the Prime Minister's ears, it has to reach the people who matter, and genuinely try get the people who are qualified in aviation to address the issues of aviation safety.
Captain, I'd just like to, if you could give an example of in what ways India is failing in terms of safety, if you could help contextualize it by perhaps providing an example.
Okay, I'll give you specifics. In most countries in the world, you have an independent safety board, which, and when that safety board is not any Tom, Dick, and Harry, they are safety experts. There's a program called accident analysis, and there's a course on accident analysis for aviators. It doesn't necessarily have to be pilots only. There are engineers, there are other qualified aviators also who do an accident analysis course. Now, that course is put into practice, and those are the people who actually do the investigation because they're thoroughly programmed and understand the details, what can happen and why, and how the human body behaves, how the human mind behaves. Some people say, oh, the pilot reacted too late or something happened. So there have been studies carried out at the various stages as to when a human mind is supposed to react to what emergency at various stages. That in India is lacking. And I'll give you an example. All over the world, they have these accidents. We don't have it in India. And in spite of the fact that I've insisted for the last so many years to have an independent safety board, they have started a safety board today, but it is certainly not independent because yesterday itself, the Director General came on board the TV channel and he says he reports only to the Secretary of Civil Aviation. That is not an independent safety board. It has to be really independent, totally, with no one sitting on top of that authority. They have to be, first of all, they have to be qualified people there, and they have to be independent to freely assess and direct how to improve aviation safety in India.
Right. Understood. Thank you so much, Captain, for your valuable insights and for joining us.
Most welcome.